Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everybody out there in YouTube/podcast land. All right, we are here again this week. I, of course, am Jason, and this is
Craig.
And this is the Bunny Rabbit's Hole. All right, here at the Bunny Rabbit's Hole, if you've never been to the Bunny Rabbit's Hole, what we do each and every week, we pick a central theme. With that theme, we explore it, we talk about it, and when something that we get said inspires us to talk about something else, we go down that proverbial rabbit hole until we reach the end, or until Craig finally gets tired and he realizes that we cannot let this thing go on for hours. We have to get back on topic.
Right, and as Jason said, we pick a central topic and we research it. We research both sides of it, both for and against, because we don't just research the things that fit our narrative, but we also include our opinions. And today's topic is it's just opinion. That's all there is.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the topics that we do pick are just opinions. So, and they're just our opinions, and they're just to inspire conversation. If you have an opposite thing or a point that you'd like to make, please put it in the comments below, and we'd like to talk. We'd like to start a dialogue.
Right.
But that is for the other ones, because this one we have a special theme for everybody this week, because we have been going down some seriously dark rabbit holes lately. And this week, what are we going to talk about, Craig?
So this week we are talking about the movie. This is going to be a review of the movie Christopher Robin that came out last year, 2018. So if you haven't seen the movie, pause this, go spend an hour and a half, watch the movie, come back and listen to us and see if you agree with us.
There will be a lot of spoilers because we are reviewing this movie. And not only are we going to talk about the Christopher Robin movie, we're going to talk about Pooh and how Pooh affects us. And just all about finding your inner child.
Right.
Isn't that what Pooh really is? It's just your innocent inner child.
Right. Oh, and, we forgot the disclaimer. If you're easily offended, go find something else. Okay, that's said and done. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay. If you're offended by Winnie the fucking Pooh, then you know what? Find out what it feels like and tastes like to No, I'm not going to say it.
Yep. We're
going to keep this. This is going to be PG / maybe even PG-13. And there's a couple things I want to kind of point out during the movie that would have made the movie R, that I want to talk about that people just may not understand. But I kind of want to start this a little bit to talk about the Pooh character in the books themselves. It's kind of a history.
Okay.
If we will. Okay. So Winnie the Pooh was first he was created by a man named A.A. Milne, or Milne, depending on which way you want to see it. I had a teacher whose name was spelled the exact same way, and he pronounced it Milne. So if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm pronouncing it the way that I know somebody who had this name.
Right.
This story for his son, Christopher Robin Milne, involving his stuffed animals. Now, you can go to, I believe it's the New York Public Library, and see the actual stuffed animals.
Oh, really?
A couple that are missing, like Roo is missing, and a couple others are missing. But you can see the Pooh, the Tigger, the Eeyore. He created this whole world about his son's stuffed animals and kind of created a thing. Now, I did read somewhere, and I can't find it, so I'm just going to throw this out there if it's true or not. I'm going to throw it, but Christopher Robin later in life regretted, and actually, from what I read, despised the fact that he was Christopher Robin in the story. He didn't like it, but I can't find the reference, so I'm just going to put that out there that somebody said it. Whether it's true or not, I'm just saying it here.
How can you be offended by your father showing you how much he loves you by writing a whole series of books of fucking about you and your stuffed animals?
Right. So
that's a true definition of snowflake.
Right. So Christopher Robin, his dad named the toy bear after a bear that he's seen in a zoo. in the London Zoo. His name was Pooh. And some actually say that the name actually came from a book. It was Pooh was the name of the character from Williams and oh, I'm losing it. I'm losing it. Anyway, the name came from they think that it came from a character from another book named Pooh is where they think that the name Pooh came from Winnie being the bear that he saw in the zoo, and Pooh being Winnie the Pooh. Now, in the sixth, he wrote several books. Now, with it, there was the first couple were I'm got my notes all over here. The first one was Winnie the Pooh. The next one was the House at Pooh Corner, and then When We Were Young, and Now We Are Six. They were. Go ahead.
No, I'm just sitting here. I've got the theme song going through my head.
Right.
Dance along to Winnie the Pooh.
And okay. I'm glad that you put it because during the movie, we'll go into the movie really. We'll get there quick. All the way through it was it was like this music that was every time Pooh or one of them were on screen, it was in the background, really light, but it was in the background. It was really cool.
Right. Well, and years ago I read the book The Tao of Pooh.
Okay.
And we'll get to that later, but it's basically Tao spelled Tao. It's part of Zen, if anybody is into Zen Buddhism and shit like that. But that music kind of goes along with it because there's a tranquility that goes with that music. It's very calming. Even though it goes up and down, it's still very calming.
Nice. And yeah, there's, I mean, come on. It's Winnie the Pooh.
Right.
I mean, but okay, so fast forwarding into the 60s, those books were written in the 20s, in the 20s and 30s. In the 60s, the Walt Disney Company licensed Winnie the Pooh from the family. Now, there's two families in particular. There's A. Milne's family who wrote the books, and then there's E.H. Shepard who did the illustrations. So they had to get the rights from both families so that Disney could create Pooh. Now, pre-Disney is what we refer to as classic Pooh. These are closer to the characters that you see in the movie, because Tigger's not this bright or this really deep dark orange like we know from the Disney versions. And another thing Disney did was they dropped the hyphens from Winnie the Pooh. It used to be hyphenated, but then Disney dropped that.
Which is good because it's kind of confusing.
It was. Now, I'm going to fast forward all the way to later because there's something that's kind of interesting and kind of funny that backfired against Disney that maybe some people don't know about. So years ago, our copyright laws were set forth that 75 years from publication, whatever it was, came into public domain. Now, when you look back at all the movies that Disney made, you have Robin Hood, Beauty and the Beast. You have the Aladdin story. You have Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. All of these things became public domain so that Disney didn't have to pay royalties to anyone on these.
Well, and going along with that, that's also probably why Disney re-releases these things every so often, so that way it renews the copyright and those years start over.
Yes. But so what happened was in the 90s, there was an event that was about to happen that probably would have changed the course of Disney's history as a company. 75 years was coming up on Steamboat Willie, which was the very first Mickey Mouse cartoon. Had that gone into public domain, you could use Mickey Mouse in anything that you wanted after that. Mickey Mouse would be owned by the people. They lobbied, petitioned and got Congress to change our copyright laws to 105 years from 75 years from date of publication, so that we can't use Mickey Mouse in anything, and they got to control everything. However, this kind of backfired on Disney because Winnie the Pooh was still officially owned by the two families, the Milnes and the Shepherds.
Nice.
So Disney fought back at actually doing anything, and actually a lot of courts actually upheld Disney's side of the story. But in 2007, the Shepherd family, on behalf of the Milne family, actually won a case because Disney was starting to sell all the classic Pooh stuff in merchandising lines, and they were withholding the amounts of money that they were actually making. Now, the deal was that Disney would make 98%, the families would make 2%. But when you're selling $1 billion in Winnie the Pooh stuff, 2% is still a pretty decent chunk of change.
Yeah.
For the family. And they were, so it was upheld. The families won their case against Disney, and Disney was forced to pay them a shitload of money.
Good.
So I kind of wanted to start with a history and end on a really happy note for the family, and kind of a in the face of Disney for that fact. For you changed the copyright laws, you made it this way, and you got screwed by it.
Right.
When you made your fortune, you made your empire. The House of Mouse was built on the works of others that they didn't have to pay royalties for.
Exactly.
So with that, I'm off my pedestal. Let's talk.
All right.
Pooh.
Let's talk Pooh. Let's talk Christopher Robin. So
not Copophagia either, you fucking weirdos. Shit eating. We don't get into those fetishes here.
So I'm gonna come out and say right away, I love this movie. I watched it twice. I watched it the other night and I watched it again today. But movie starts out Christopher Robin's a little kid. He's in the 100 Acre Woods with Pooh and all the others, and they're kind of giving him Christopher Robin a going away party because he's getting ready to go to boarding school.
Yes.
So they do this, and then they say, well, he'll be back again someday, and he's like, and Chris Robin, it was funny because Chris Robin's sitting down with just Winnie the Pooh, and Pooh says, will you still think about me? He's like, I'll always think about you, Pooh. Even if I live to be 100, I'll always think about you. And Pooh says, well, if you're 100, how old will that make me? He says, 99.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw out a bunch of Pooh quotes throughout this because I found a whole list of them because there's so many great Pooh quotes in the movie. There's a Pooh quote that says, if you live to be 100, I only want to live to be 100 and minus 1 day because I don't want to live a day without you.
Aw. Yeah, and so at that point now, Christopher Robin leaves, and he's sent away to boarding school, and then it follows his, life trajectory after that. He goes into the military, goes into the war, and then ends up as an executive at a luggage company.
Yes. The Woozle Company.
Yes, the Woozle.
The Winslow Company.
Right. But throughout this time, now Christopher Robin is grooming his daughter, and his wife isn't too happy about it, but he's grooming his daughter to do the same thing, go to boarding school and all that stuff. And his wife, played by the very talented Haley Atwell, and Christopher Robin as an adult, played by the very talented Ewan McGregor.
Yes. So we have, in case you don't know, we have young Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we have Agent Carter.
Right. And, the narrator of this sounds very similar to the original narrator from Pooh, but that guy died July 31st of 2018, but that's not to say he couldn't have still did the narration before he passed, but I could not find out who narrated it.
So, yeah, I don't know who named it. I was about to talk about something else that had nothing to do with the narration, so I'm just going to let you keep going.
But anyways, I mean, it took me, listening to the narrator, took me right back to childhood watching Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
So go ahead and go into what you're going to talk about.
Okay, well, I watched this movie last night with my wife and one of her best friends. So we're three adults watching this movie, laughed, almost cried, and it was very well done. This movie was very well done. It probably because how they captured the innocence of Pooh and Tigger and Eeyore and Piglet and Roo and Kanga and Owl and Rabbit. How they captured the innocence of all of them so great. It was Pooh in the real world was, to me, was magical.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
And
I'm not very good at playing nap, I guess.
I guess this was a short nap.
Yep.
Okay, but I will say this right out of the, there was something that I had an issue with.
Which is?
I had to wait almost an hour and 10 minutes to hear my first, oh, bother.
Yeah, and it's not the guy who originally did his voice either. I mean, it's a talented actor who's doing his voice, and I forgot who it was. I'm looking it up real quick.
So there was four people that have done Pooh's voice throughout the ages since Disney started. It was Franz Frazankas, Sterling Holloway, Hal Smith, and Jim Cummings. But I don't know who did it in the movie. Those are the ones that did it throughout the history of the Disney cartoons.
I will tell you in a second because I looked it up earlier and then forgot it. So keep going while I look it up.
So, just to kind of continue the storyline, Pooh. Okay, so Ewan McGregor's character, Christopher Robin, is talking with his daughter. She had found this box that Christopher Robin put all of his Pooh memorabilia in and hid it under his bed, which eventually gets put into the attic where his daughter finds it. His daughter opens it up, sees the drawings that Christopher Robin had done when he was her age, and she's fascinated by these things that, oh my God, my dad actually has an imagination. He was a child at one time. So he comes in and poo-poos it and says, you probably should spend, your time doing better stuff like studying and reading. He's just a staunch asshole. He became his father.
Right.
And you've seen this thing in multiple movies where at some point in time they realize, oh my God, I lost my childhood. I've become a prick. And that's what Christopher Robin had become.
If by now you haven't gone and watched the movie, it's very similar to the storyline from Hook with Robin Williams.
Yeah, exactly. I was drawing comparisons and parallels to that too, where in that one, Robin Hood is, Jack, you can't do that, Jack, you robbed the motherfucker, Jack, you just like your mother, right. Jack. He yells at his child, and then somehow, we all know that he became Pan, he fought Hook, and
right.
And that's another movie for another time. But there's a lot of similarities.
Right. So Eeyore was voiced by Brad Garrett in the movie.
Yes.
But it wasn't the old Eeyore voice that I was used to, and I didn't care for it. That was my only problem with the movie.
Okay.
Jim Cummings did a great job with Pooh and with Tigger. Because the wonderful things about Tigger is not the only one.
He does that a lot.
Yeah. Oh, bother.
So, now that Christopher Robin is up, he works for the Woozle luggage the Winslow Luggage Corporation. He's forced to make cuts so that the company's profits will go up. And part of Christopher Robin is supposed to go on holiday, on vacation with his wife and daughter to the cottage that he used to go to when he was a kid.
Back where he met Pooh, at where the 100-acre woods was the tree that had the magic opening.
Yes. So he's depressed. He's beat down. He doesn't know what to do because most of the people that work in this office are veterans from the war and were told that they would always have a job at Winslow. Part of what Christopher Robin was supposed to do is cut their jobs. He's supposed to make that hard decision. So
Right.
he's having a very, very bad day.
Right.
Now, at the same time when he's having a very bad day, Pooh wakes up and
Yeah.
starts walking around the 100-acre woods. Now, it's not a bright and sunshiny day like it was every day that Christopher Robin shows up, like at the beginning when we see them having the tea party. They're in the 100-acre woods, but it's foggy and it's gloomy. He's actually talks about how gloomy it is, and there's a rumbly in my tumbly, and he can't find Piglet or Tigger or anybody.
Right.
So Pooh decides, okay, there's only one person that I know that can help me find everybody. I need to find Christopher Robin.
Right.
Pooh does something he's never done before.
Right. I'm going to pause you right there because there's another part that we need to mention before we go into that.
Okay.
So we talked about Christopher Robin getting all this pressure at work. So then he finds out he can't go on holiday because he has to stay and work to make these cuts. So not only is he getting pressure from work, but now he's getting pressure from his wife and daughter who want him to go on vacation with them. So
Yes.
he's getting double whammy, from both sides.
Yes, Christopher Robin's life sucks at this moment.
Right. So I'll let you go ahead now.
So now, so we're sitting. Now we come to a thing where Christopher Robin's sitting at a park, and his wife and child are gone on holiday. He's depressed. He's down. He's hurt. Now, Pooh decides he needs to find Christopher Robin, so he goes through the magical door and comes out into a weird land of tall buildings and people and noises. So he comes through and he says one of my favorite lines in the whole movie. This looks like a bed when he talks about a park bench.
Right.
So he crawls up on the park bench and falls asleep. Well, a little bit later is when Christopher Robin comes in and just happens to sit on the park bench on the other side of Pooh.
Right.
And this is where they're both, oh bother, here's my life sucks. And then they start hearing each other, and they're not really sure if it's the other one or if it's in their head. And they turn around, and Pooh's in the real world.
Yeah, and Pooh automatically, even though Christopher Robin has grown up, he recognizes him, says, Christopher Robin! And Christopher's like, Pooh, was that you? How'd you know it was me? He's like, well, you've changed here, but you haven't here. You're still the same, pointing to his eyes.
Yes. Which was cool because Christopher Robin mentions twice that I counted in the movie that it had progressed 30 years. Now, since the last time that he was in there, and Pooh talks about he's a little bit more wrinkled than he used to be. So this is when Christopher Robin decides that what, people can't see Pooh because people mock or people are scared of what they don't understand.
Right.
Talking bear is something people just wouldn't understand. So he shoves him in his coat, and his neighbor happens to see Christopher Robin. And this guy's been in the movie multiple times and starts talking about, hey, when are you going to come over and play gin rummy? He's that annoying. He's the Rick Moranis character from Ghostbusters that always wants Sigourney Weaver to come over to his house. It's like it's innocent, and he just wants to mingle with the neighbor. Or in if you've ever seen Game Night with Jason Bateman, it's the neighbor there too. He's trying to do the same. He does the same type of thing. Well, this guy happens to catch him in that same park, and now he's got Pooh under his coat. It's like, what is that? Oh, it's a cat. Can I see it?
I love cats.
No, it's a sick cat. I'm gonna nurse it back to health.
Yeah, it's cool because it's not just. The movie's not just Christopher Robin, Pooh, and all the stuffed animals in his family, but there's so many other characters that come in and out. Like, have you ever seen the TV show, the British TV show, The IT Crowd? There's a character. There's a guy who plays the policeman, the Bobby, who's from that show.
Mm.
And he was funny in that show. He was kind of like a misogynist playboy in the IT Crowd, but in this one he plays a British cop.
Okay. And then if you've ever seen the BBC version of Sherlock, Sherlock Holmes with Cumberbatch and Bilbo, what's his name? Freeman, Martin Freeman.
Yeah.
The guy that plays Sherlock Holmes' older brother, Mycroft, is in the movie too. He plays his boss.
Ah.
He plays the guy that tells him he's got to make cuts. So there's a lot of people in this movie for it centering around a pretty limited
Right.
scope.
Right. And so now he's got Pooh. So he goes to get a train ticket to go back to Sussex because he's like, well, Pooh, you've never come out here in London before. You've always been in Sussex. So he goes to the tree that Pooh came out of there in London, and it doesn't open.
Mm-mm.
Pooh's like, well, the door is where it's supposed to be when it needs to be. I guess it doesn't need to be here anymore. So at that point now, Chris Robbins goes to the train station, buys a ticket to go back to Sussex, and they hop on the train. And
before that, though,
Yep.
there's a great part in the movie. He takes him back to his house.
Oh yeah.
He takes him back to his house, and Pooh, being the curious bear, first he gives him a pot of honey.
Right.
And he starts eating this honey. Well, it actually earlier it spilled on the table. So Pooh's eating the honey off the table, and then he steps in it, and then he climbs off the table, and then he starts walking with honey on his feet, and he starts sticking to everything. He's trying to walk down this rug, and the rug is sticking to his feet, and it's pretty funny. And then a little bit later, Christopher Robin,
a very sticky floor.
yes, Christopher Robin falls asleep, and then he wakes up to this loud crash. So he runs downstairs to see what it was, and Pooh's in his kitchen, and his shelving system had fallen down. That's on the wall, and he just looks at him and goes, "Your ladder's broken." He's like, "That wasn't made for climbing." I guess that's why it wasn't any good.
It's the simplicity of Pooh that makes him
Yes.
so charming. And I mean, and he's kind of self-deprecating too, because he's quoted many times, even not just in this movie, but in other stuff, as saying, "I'm a bear with very little brains."
Yes. Which actually kind of choked me up the first time he said it.
Right.
In the
Right.
movie. But at this moment, Christopher Robin gets pissed and decides, now we need to go to the train station. So now they're in the train. He buys a ticket, they're in the train.
So they're on their trip, and Christopher Robin's trying to work. He's basically, trying to multitask. So he's trying to work, and Pooh's sitting there staring out the window going, "A horse, a dog, a tree, a house." He's like, "Pooh, what are you doing?" "I'm playing a game." "Well, what's this game?" "The game's called Say What You See."
Say what you see. And then he's like, he tries to say it quieter. He's like, could you do it quieter? Horse, house. I don't know what that is.
And then a lady opens the door to their car, and Christopher Robin's like, "I'm sorry, but we're full in here. It's his nap time."
And he's pointing to a stuffed animal.
Right. So at this point, ladies are like, "Okay, this guy's fucking crazy. I don't want to sit in here anyway." So that now they get to Sussex, and they go to the house that Chris Robin went to as a boy. And they're kind of peeking in the window, and they see Haley Atwell, Chris Robin's wife, and he's like, "Who's like, well, who's that?" He's like, "That's my wife." "Eleanor, was it? Was her name Eleanor?"
Yeah.
Okay. And then he sees his daughter, and he says, well, who's that?" "Well, that's my daughter. That's Madeline." He's like, "Oh, that's a Madeline?" Because he had seen pictures of her at Chris Robin's apartment back in London.
Yes.
And at that point, was it that point that his daughter saw him? Or no, it was the next day his daughter saw him. Okay.
Yeah.
So then they go to the tree, and this is the part that got me, because they go to the tree, and back in my childhood, Pooh got stuck going through everything.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
yes. Yes. This part was great.
So Pooh shoots through the tree. Christopher Robin's going through the tree, and Christopher Robin gets stuck. And he's like, I'm stuck. And he's like, oh, so that's what that feels like, Pooh?
Yes. Are you stuck, Christopher Robin?
Yeah. It
So,
was great.
there was a part in the train station that we forgot, where he's running along. He's carrying Pooh, and he's trying to get him to play nap time, so that people won't see or won't hear him or won't see him. But as they're running along, he's like, "Oh, can I have a balloon?" He sees somebody selling red balloons. He's like,
Yeah.
"Can I have a balloon? It'd very much make me happy." It's like, "You don't need a balloon." "I know I don't need a balloon, but it would very much make me happy."
Yeah. So he buys him.
He runs back and he buys him a balloon. He ties it on his arm, and then he comes back.
Well, and then as they get on the train, the door's shut and the balloon's stuck outside.
Yes.
And Pooh's like, oh, I lost my balloon. And he's like, oh, well. And then when they get off the train, the balloon's still there, so they get the balloon back.
Yes. Yeah. So now Christopher Robin is back in the 100-acre woods.
Right.
But it's still gloomy and foggy, like it was when Pooh first woke up before he came into London.
Right. And mind you, this entire time, Christopher Robin is carrying this briefcase with all these papers that he's doing to try to, do all these cuts for his job. And Pooh is asking him about the briefcase, and he's like, well, it's full of very important things. And he's like, more important than Madeline? No, well, no, not more important than her, but it's very important things.
Yes.
And he's like, well, and then they get there, and like Pooh knocked it over or something. I can't quite remember, but some of the papers flew away. And he got really mad at Pooh, and he blew up on Pooh. And he's like, you're right, Pooh, you are a bear with very little brains, and da-da-da. And then Pooh gets upset and stalks off.
And then, but just before that, they're trying to find everybody's friend. He gives him Christopher Robin pulls out a compass, and then he lets Pooh hang on to it. He's like, follow it north.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, okay. So he starts walking. It's like, no, put it to where the arrow points to the end. Oh, that's what that means?
I've just walked until I found these tracks, and I followed those. Yeah. Those are our tracks, Pooh.
Yes. So they start walking, and then Pooh's like, aren't you using the compass? No, I quit when I started following these tracks. And then they see their tracks, and they've been walking circles.
Yeah, and this is where Christopher Robin got really mad at him. And then from there, Pooh's got the compass and kind of goes off on his own, sad, dejected, hurt by Christopher Robin. And Christopher Robin is trying to find his way. Then he runs across, was it Tigger he ran across first? No, it wasn't Tigger.
It was Eeyore. But he stops at the bridge.
Yeah.
He stops on the bridge. Now, got a flashback to before when Pooh and Christopher Robin, when they walked away at the beginning of it, they walked across this little arch bridge that's over a stream. Now, they're both looking at their reflections in the water, and then they drop a stick on it and breaks up their reflections, and then they walked on. When Christopher Robin, as an older man, goes to the same bridge, he looks down, but he sees his younger self.
Oh, you know what? I did not see that part. I missed it.
So he sees his younger self, and then he drops the stick in it, and it breaks it. Then he hears Eeyore in the water trying to commit suicide by letting himself go over the waterfall.
Right. Oh, it's all right. I've been in the water before. This is how it feels to be soggy.
Yeah. So he jumps
don't worry, the waterfall's coming up. I'll just go over that.
Nobody will see me again. So when Christopher Robin jumps in, it's like, I'll save you. He jumps in like he's about a, takes his coat off. He throws his bag, his briefcase with important papers off to the side, jumps in, but he's only about halfway up to his knees.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I'm much bigger.
Oh yeah, I grew up.
So he walks out there and he picks up Eeyore and he saves him from the waterfall, which very briefly you catch it. The waterfall is about 18 inches.
Right. Oh, and also, this is the first time in the movie you see flashes of the young Christopher Robin in the adult Christopher Robin.
Yes.
Jumping in to save Eeyore triggered that for him.
Mm-hmm.
And during the movie, there's several things that trigger things for him, which is basically what the movie is meant to be. It's like, like we said earlier, comparing it to Hook. When he learned where Robin Williams remembered how to crow in Hook,
Yes.
This is what it's building up to with Christopher Robin.
Yeah. So, but they also notice when he jumps in that the fog is kind of let up.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sunny day again.
Yep. And that goes back to that childhood, inner child that he has.
Yes. Because earlier, when they're walking circles, right after he realizes that Pooh has been following their own footprints, he yells at Pooh and says, "Doesn't anything look familiar?" And Pooh says, "The fog." But also at that time, they come across a sign that says Heffalumps and Weasels or Woozle.
Right. And also important to note that when Eeyore hears Christopher Robin's voice, he automatically assumes Christopher Robin is a Heffalump. Even as Christopher Robin is saving him, Eeyore still says he's a Heffalump and not Christopher Robin.
Yes, he is a Heffalump, and that there's no change in his opinion. He tells him over and over and over again that he's Christopher Robin, but nobody will believe him.
Right. So, go ahead.
Oh, but then they hear this noise that sounds like the Heffalump.
Right.
So Christopher Robin goes to investigate. But what
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't do that if I were us, is what he said.
Oh, yeah.
If I were us. So when they go to investigate the noise, they see that it's Owl's house that's been blown out of a tree.
And this is important because in almost every Pooh story, Owl's house gets blown over.
Yes, and Christopher Robin is there to help fix it.
Right.
Because that's what Christopher Robin does. He fixes and saves them.
Right.
So when he starts crawling around, he notices that there's a weather vane, which is the little thing that's on the top of the people's houses back in farms. They got an arrow and it points to which way the wind is blowing.
Right.
But this is kind of spinning and it's making a creak or a squeaking noise.
Well, it's also scraping against the metal of the side of the house.
Yeah. And that's what the noise was that was scaring Eeyore.
Right. So at this point, now they've taken the weather vane off. He's carrying it with him. He's basically using Eeyore to help him find everybody else, which they find them in a hollowed out log, I believe it was.
Yep.
And he sticks his head down there because he hears them talking, because these animals, no matter what, they think they're hiding, but yet they always talk and everything else, and everybody can hear them.
Yes.
So he sticks his head in and he goes, "Piglet, Tigger, Rabbit, it's me, it's Christopher Robin." "You're not Christopher Robin." And Tigger's like, "Oh, I'll get him, I'll bounce him, bounce him. And he bounces right into Christopher Robin's chest. Bam, right down on it, back on the ground.
And this part was great to me because they're working together to not do anything.
Right.
So when Christopher Robin realizes that only Christopher Robin can save them from the Heffalump, he needs to show them that he is Christopher Robin. He needs to go uh, go to save him. So they run off. He grabs Eeyore to be his assistant and takes him out into the woods to fight the Heffalump. But back in the back inside the log, they start hearing that they're Christopher Robin and Eeyore are fighting this Heffalump. Well, Rabbit's being pushed up towards the top so his ears can stick out the top of the thing. So he's hearing everything. Owl, and he's standing on top of Owl's shoulders, whose eye is smashed up against a knot that's in the hole. So he's seeing little bits of it. And then Tigger's screaming that if I wasn't needed here, I'd be out there helping.
Right. Well, and before they went off to fight the Heffalump, Chris Robin was trying to explain to them that noise you heard that scared her right into the log was just this weather vane. And when he shows them the weather vane, they're like, oh, great. Now he's got a weapon, too.
Now he's got a weapon.
So now they're off fighting the Heffalump. And as he's pretending to fight it, Eeyore's starting to recognize Christopher Robin as Christopher Robin at this point. Because he's seeing that inner child come out. Because Christopher Robin's like jumping around, thrashing around, falling down, getting up, jumping back up, and then he gets Eeyore to make this really awful noise, and so Eeyore's making this horrifying noise, and they're like, "Oh my God, I think the Heffalump might kill them." Blah blah. So Chris Robin's up, and he's got the weather vane, acting like a weapon, like stabbing at stuff, and they're seeing it, and then all of a sudden there's silence, and Rabbit's like, "I don't hear anything." And they're like, Owl, do you see anything? Yes. Well, what is it? Something small that's getting bigger.
Yes. As they're walking towards the
log.
Yeah.
That's I think my favorite line from the movie. Yes, I see something small that's getting bigger. Well, is it Christopher Robin? And then yes, it turns out to be Christopher Robin.
Yes. So they come out to meet him after that. They let their guard down. And actually, we forgot the whole...
Eat you for breakfast.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, well, we forgot the whole... after he loses Pooh, and before he finds Eeyore, he falls into a Heffalump trap.
Oh, yeah. And also... before he fell into the trap, when we were talking about the bag of important things, he told Pooh that, because this is important for later on in the story, he told Pooh that if I don't have these papers, Mr. Wilson will eat me for breakfast. And he's like, a woozle eat you for breakfast? Yes, Pooh, a woozle will eat me for breakfast. So go ahead with the Heffalump trap.
So what a Heffalump trap was they dug a pit with a sign that says Heffalump trap.
Because they're sneaky.
Yes. So he falls into this hole, but when he realizes that he's in a Heffalump trap, it's like, I'm not a Heffalump. I'm Christopher Robin. I'm not a Heffalump.
Right.
As he's trying to crawl out of this pit, he pulls out a root and some rocks come out and it hits him in the head and he falls back, and then it starts raining.
Right.
It starts raining, the pit fills up, and he floats to the top, and that's when he wakes up. Head's dazed, and then he walks across the bridge.
Right. Yeah. So then back, now he finds everybody else, and they have to find Pooh. And now I've suddenly drawn a blank.
So
let me let you
go. They had Piglet was asking him, where's Pooh? And they said, well, Pooh went somewhere. Well, somewhere was where Christopher Robin told Pooh to wait for him, and he would come back. Somewhere in the seat, it was a stick or a log or a branch that was on the ground, overlooking this hillside. And Christopher Robin's like, "Oh, I know where he is. He's somewhere." So they go up to this area where Pooh was sitting there waiting for him, and he sits down with Pooh.
Right, and this kind of ties into the whole philosophical aspect and the Taoist part of Pooh, because it's that somewhere, but being a distinct location, it's that tranquility, that when people say, I'm trying to find my Zen, they're trying to find tranquility. And that's pretty much what, the Tao is seeking for that clarity of mind, that tranquility and stuff like that. And it's where Pooh always went somewhere to think.
Mm-hmm.
He'd go to somewhere, he'd sit and be think.
Yeah.
Think. And we didn't get to hear him say that in this movie. That kind of bummed me out.
Right. I'm going to throw a quote in there, a Pooh quote. It's like, I am not lost, for I know where I am. But however, where I am may be lost.
Right.
I think that kind of ties in with the Taoism here.
Right. And then when they find Pooh, I believe is right there. Is that when Christopher Robin told Pooh that he was sorry that he was lost?
Yes.
Yep.
And then I forgot. Now, I'm not even going to attempt the quote at this point because I forgot what it was about there's a being lost quote that he says right here, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I can't either.
But anyway, they have tea parties. He falls asleep.
Right.
To get moving here. So when he wakes up, he's like, "Oh shit!"
Right. I have to get to the office. What time is it? Pooh, we fell asleep. And then somebody goes, "Owl, you were awake all night. Why didn't you wake us up?"
So he grabs his briefcase. Actually, Tigger brings him his briefcase.
Right.
This part's important. Tigger brings him his briefcase with his umbrella.
And all of his important things.
Yeah, with all of his important things. And he crawls out the door because he's a man now. He has to crawl through it. He crawls out through the tree, out the door in the tree, back out, and now he's in Sussex, where his wife and child are, but they don't know that he's there because he snuck through with Pooh to get Pooh home.
Right. And then his daughter spies him. Yes. And from an upstairs window, and she opens the window and she's like, "Daddy, is that you?" He's like, "Oh no, yes, Maddie, it's me." And She's like, "Are you here to be with us?" "No, honey, I'm sorry. I have a very important meeting. I have to get back to London. I've got to catch the next train." And then his wife comes out, and his daughter's like, basically, like, "Fine, fuck you, Daddy," and walks away.
Yeah.
And the wife's like, he says, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for her to see me," which is probably the worst thing he could have said to his wife. Because you see that look automatically cross her face, like, if I had a gun, I would shoot you right between the eyes.
And I would bury you here in Sussex, and nobody would ever know because you were never here.
But he basically reiterates to her, "I have this important meeting. I've got to go." And she basically tells him, "Go. But we're going to stay a little bit longer," kind of hinting that she might not ever come back to him.
We're not coming back.
Right.
You leave, we're done.
Right. And so he takes off, heads back to London, and at this point, back in the 100-acre woods, Tigger is strapping his briefcase to the back of Eeyore, and Pooh sees it. And Pooh's like, "What are you doing? That's Christopher Robin's very important things. I thought you gave that to him." "No, I gave him stuff to remember that, the more important things to remember us."
Yes. So Tigger replaced the really important papers with trinkets and things that Christopher Robin would never forget them. So
right.
Now,
well, before you go further, one of the things they put in there was sticks, and the sticks thing is why it's important. This is what ties into the Tao of Pooh. Because in the Tao of Pooh, there's somebody made an A. I believe Christopher Robin made an A out of sticks, and asked Tigger, "What do you see?" And Tigger says, "Sticks." Asked Owl. Owl says, "A." So it goes around the whole thought pattern of perception. Whereas Owl sees an A, Tigger just sees sticks that he can pick up and play with.
Yeah.
So now we get back into sorry for my segue. Now we'll go back to it.
No, and that becomes really important later.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
perception becomes really important near the end.
Yes.
So now we have Christopher Robin, who he's already gone through this roller coaster of emotions. He went from being down about destroying people's lives because he's got to cut a bunch of jobs and figure out how to save money at work. Now his marriage is falling apart. He just rekindled a friendship with all of his old childhood friends in the 100-Acre Woods. Then he had to leave them again, which is down. Now his wife is pretty much saying that they're done. His daughter is pretty much disowned him. He's sitting on a train trying to absorb all of these things that just hit him in the last 24 hours.
Right.
He's sitting in there, and he goes to pick up his briefcase, goes to open it up, but he's like, fuck it, I can't. And he just sets it aside, and he just mopes.
Well, and another really powerful scene was after he leaves, they segue to her daughter in her room, and she's just destroying things.
Yeah.
She is so angry, and to see that, I mean, it made me think of my kids and going, wow, how, you know, because you have an effect on everybody in your life. And sometimes when you think you're having a positive effect by driving them to do the things like go to boarding school, you know, prepare yourself for life, blah, 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 you're actually driving them away from you.
Right. And
because that's what they see. They see, oh, he wants me to go away.
Yeah. And the same holds true too. I wanted to bring this up at some point in time during this because I knew we'd get to this point about where he is pushing his daughter to do something. You see a lot of similarities in this with the over pushy parent that's living vicariously through their child. Like
right, sports or
exactly. Like there's the fathers that think in their heart that they missed their chance to be a professional athlete. So my child isn't going to miss that opportunity. So they push him and push him and push him, and they're doing this camp and this team and this league and that's, you know, and then the kids are fucking burnt out by the time they're 11.
Right.
Fucking the game is no more. It's not fun anymore. It's a chore, and they're not doing it because they love it. They're doing it because dad's pushing me to do it and dad's coaching the team. So I got to be on the team.
And it's the only way dad pays attention to me.
Exactly. You know, and a lot of times that's really what it comes down to is the child is only doing it because it's the only time that they really get to see their parent.
Yeah. And where a lot of times, and this is where self-reflection really comes into effect. We think we're doing all these great things for our kids, but we really need to take a step back and look at it and say, but is that what they want?
Right. Your child is an individual. And there's a lot of times that parents don't take the time to get to know their child.
Right.
They know themselves and they feel that they're, you know, well, they came from me, so they must just be like me. Like my son and I have a lot of similarities.
Right.
But we have a lot of differences.
Right.
And I got to know my son, and I know what he likes and doesn't like. So I got to know him, you know, as my son. So when I was younger, I kind of pushed him in certain ways, and then realized that, you know, he didn't want to be a film director. He didn't want to be this. He didn't want to be that. But then I backed off. It's like, okay, you want to be a skateboarder? That's cool. He went on his own. Then skateboarding just became a hobby. He got to meet a bunch of pro skateboarders and realized that I may never make it to that level, but this is kind of fun. And I don't know if I really want to even a career in that. Then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he starts adopting a lot of the same interests that I had. I never pushed him into the type of music he likes. I never pushed him into, you know, the field of study that he went into, but those are things that I wanted when I was younger, and then he found them on his own.
Right. You know, and I went through the same thing with my kids, but back to the movie. So, Christopher Robin now gets to the office, and as he gets to the office, is, you know, Pooh and Tigger had gone through the thing. So Pooh comes out of the 100-Acre Woods and is seen by Madeline, Christopher Robin's daughter,
who was told by her mother to go out and get dirty, play. And she's like, I'll play harder than any child has ever played. She goes, no, just have fun.
don't come back in unless you're filthy.
And the child took it as a like, I'm gonna prove to you that I can go out and I can be dirty and I can do it. But the mom's like, no, just go out.
The most profound thing was when she asked her mom, how do I do it? And her mom's like, just go out and explore. Your dad used to find things out here when he was a kid to play with. You can do that too.
Yeah.
So she's out there pretending she's in Wimbledon, and she just won Wimbledon.
Yes, she's out there with an old tennis racket and Winnie the Pooh's red balloon, which her dad had tied on her bike.
Right.
But she's hitting it with her, and she's talking about, yay, I just won Wimbledon. And she hears a couple of voices up in the bushes. And she's like, hello? Hello? And that's when they come crashing down the hill.
No, wait. She hit the ball into the woods first. And they threw it back. Yep. And then they come crashing down, and they're talking, and she's freaking out, but then she goes, hey, you're the bear from my dad's drawings. Because earlier in the movie, one thing we talked about, she found her dad's drawings, but one of the things that she said was she had wrote a note to her dad saying, Dad, I never knew you were such a good artist. I hope you'll hang this up next to the ones of mine that you hung up.
Yes. So
now she's like, you're the bear from my dad's drawings. And he's like, oh, well, you're Madeline. You're Christopher Robin's daughter. And then they go through it, and they find, and he's like, we have to find him. Here's his bag with his very important things.
Yes.
And if he doesn't get them, a woozle's going to eat him for breakfast.
A woozle's going to eat him for breakfast, yes. And Piglet has a great line right there when she says, and Pooh goes, and this is Piglet. And Piglet looks at her and goes, congratulations on winning Wimbledon.
Yeah. What's a Wimbledon? I don't know.
Yeah. But then Tigger comes crashing down the hill, and this is when Tigger sings a song. The wonderful thing about Tiggers, or Tiggles are wonderful things.
They bounce, 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 bounce.
The tops are made of the rubber, and the bottoms are made of the springs.
The wonderful things about Tiggers, I'm the only one.
Yes. So, the mom comes out and yells for the daughter, say, hey, Madeline, do you want any lemonade? But then when Madeline doesn't answer, she looks around and she sees a note that Madeline had wrote to her mom saying they're going on an expedition.
Yep.
That they have to bring this stuff to her dad.
Right.
And then that's when the mom freaks out because she sees that the kid's bike's gone. So she jumps in their car and drives to the train station. Trying to find the daughter.
And then it flashes to Madeline with all of the animals on her bike, and Piglet's terrified because they're going so fast, and Tigger's loving it because they're going so fast.
Yes.
Then she carries all these stuffed animals into the train station and buys a ticket to London, and they sell this, somewhere between 8 and 10-year-old little girl a ticket by herself.
A one-way ticket to London.
Right.
Yeah. And so she ends up on the train to London. The mom gets to the train station, just misses the train. So the mom's got to wait or the mom drives to London or waits for the next train. I forget which.
I can't remember which.
So
I think she drove because she had a car in London.
Yeah. So she drives to the train station in London, gets to the top of the thing, which is kind of funny because all of this shit looks like King's Cross Station from Harry Potter, which I think it was.
Probably.
And there was several there were several bridges that they show when the train is going along that were the same bridges that they used in the first Harry Potter movie for when the Hogwarts Express is transporting the kids to school. So with that, now we're back in London, and where Christopher Robin is in his business meeting with his boss, who is supposed to be helping him work on all this stuff, shows up with his golf clubs.
Right. So and now Christopher Robin's putting 2 and 2 together at this time.
Yes. That I'm doing all the work and he's taking all the credit.
Right. So at this point, they're in the meeting, and the guy's dad runs the company. And, he's like, well, I don't want to take all the credit. I'm going to let Robin here, say what happened and blah, blah, blah. So at that point, Chris Robin stands up, opens his briefcase, and sees Eeyore's tail and some sticks, and the wet cane. Right, and then his wife shows up, and a lady comes in and says, "Excuse me, Mr. Robin, we have a horrible emergency." And so he's like looking at the people in the meeting, looks in his bag, looks at his wife, sees the look on her face. He goes out to see what's going on with his wife.
Yes.
And says, "I'm sorry, there's an emergency." He goes.
Which was the smartest thing he could have done at that moment.
Fuck yeah, it was.
Because he was about ready to leave his ass.
Right. She was about ready to kill his ass. Yeah. So at that point, he goes out, finds out his daughter's missing, blah, blah, blah. They just leave to go look for her.
Yeah.
And then she tells him about the note, and he looks at the note and said, she's going on an expedition. She's not alone.
Yeah.
And then he starts explaining the stuffed animals that are alive to his wife, and she's like, I think maybe it's time for you to quit. And he's like, I think that choice has been taken out of my hands. So at that point, flashback to the business meeting, and his boss, who was supposed to help him all weekend, who was off golfing, is now saying, well, he's quite mad. I think he's losing it. And goes up and goes into his briefcase and pulls out the sticks, the weather vane, Eeyore's tail, and so he's quite mad. There's so many different symptoms, and that's when his dad says, well, you were working on this all weekend too. Don't you have a copy of it?
Don't you have a copy of it? Yes, I love that part. And so that's when the dad is starting to piece some of this together, that this man may be in charge of the luggage company, and he hired a crazy man.
Right.
So now he still doesn't know about Christopher Robin yet, but he knows that his son is not doing the job that he is supposed to be doing.
Correct. And so this, I think, is, I guess, every scene's my favorite scene, because I always say this is my favorite scene. But as he's explaining to his wife about, things, well, we skipped the part where Madeline and the stuffed animals were in a taxi, and they couldn't play nap very well, and they scared the driver. They got in an accident, and blah, blah. Then they went and hid. They saw a truck that said Wilson's luggage, so they went and hid in some luggage in there. Tigger's tail got stuck. Him, Eeyore, and Piglet were in one suitcase, while Madeline and Pooh were in another. So Tigger started bouncing to get his tail free, and they fell off. And then it's when they fly through the air, and all three of them land on the car that Christopher Robin and his wife are in.
As he's finished explaining a Tigger, an Eeyore, a Piglet, and a Pooh.
Right.
And they land on there like, oh, Christopher Robin.
Right. He's like, Eeyore, Tigger, where's Piglet? Hi, Christopher Robin.
So now the wife is starting to freak out. She's like, okay, my husband's not 100% crazy, but maybe I am.
Right.
And she's seeing the same hallucination that he is. Now, right before the daughter, so as the daughter's trying to figure out how to get to her dad, she's standing on, or she gets out of a taxi, and she's a little girl with a bunch of stuffed animals. So, actually, I got to rewind. They're in the taxi, and Piglet talks to the taxi driver. And when
because Tigger saw a reflection of himself.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Tigger starts speaking, then they all start speaking, and the cab driver freaks out and crashes.
Right.
So they get out. She's got all the stuffed animals in her hands. Now there's a witness of the newspaper stand that he crashed into, the taxi driver, and a cop.
Right. And the cop's played by the guy from the IT crowd.
Okay. So when they're standing there talking, the taxi driver is adamant that there's something possessing one of these stuffed animals. There's something not right with these stuffed animals. You know,
Right.
so when they're standing there, they're like, what the fuck what's the hell's the matter with you? And then Madeline points to a man and says, "Oh, officer, that's my dad. I'm going to go catch up with him." He's like, "Okay, goodbye, little girl." So she takes off, and as she does that, Eeyore looks up at him and moves his head. And the newspaper guy, the cop, and the taxi driver are like, "Nope, that didn't happen. No, that didn't
Right.
happen. Nope, I didn't see that."
No, the best part was because the taxi driver wasn't looking. It was the newspaper guy and the cop, because the taxi guy was facing them. And he saw the look on their face. He's like, that look, I know that look. I had that look. You saw it.
Yeah, and then they collectively denied it.
Right. Yeah. So flashback forward. So now when Eleanor meets Eeyore and Tigger and Piglet, she's like, "Who are you?" And Eeyore's like, "I'm Eeyore. Who are you?" And Christopher Robin said, it's my wife, Eleanor. "Hi, my wife, Eleanor."
Yes.
I love that part. I was like, that's awesome.
So the rest of the movie, near the end of the movie, Eeyore says that Eleanor, my wife.
Right. So, Christopher Robin's asking his wife, where is she? Talking about Madeline. She's like, somewhere between here and Wilson's luggage. It's got to be.
So before we go into that, there was something that I brought up at the very beginning of the show that I need to bring up now. So in the taxi, Madeline jumps in and sits down in the back. But now keep in mind that this takes place somewhere after World War I, between World War I and World War II. So it's in the 20s somewhere when the books came. That's the type of cars that are in the movie. So maybe the 30s. Anyway, she takes a seatbelt and clicks it. So now seatbelts weren't around then. Seatbelts didn't start hitting cars until the 70s. Right. But I found this out the other day that if you don't wear a seatbelt in a car, and it's not because of something in the story that says that you don't, like if there's not a reason in the story that the person doesn't, like the person doesn't put a seatbelt on and then they die. Like in the Grindhouse movies, the Tarantino one, the one with the car one, I forgot what it was called.
But Death Race or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. When they get it, when Kurt Russell smashes his car into theirs, the girl goes through the windshield and her leg gets severed off because she goes through the windshield and her leg was sticking out the window. She didn't have a seatbelt on, so she goes flying. You can get away with that because it was part of the story. But
the plot device.
Yeah, if you are especially on TV and in movies, you automatically get a TV MA rating or an R rating if you do not buckle your seatbelt.
Huh. I did not know that.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
That is weird.
So that if she didn't buckle her seatbelt in a car that didn't have seatbelts, that movie could have been R.
Huh. And then Disney wouldn't have made it.
Right.
Or wouldn't have released it.
Right. Yeah.
So at this point,
they would have created another touchstone so that they could release R-rated movies like they did in the 80s.
So at this point now, Christopher Robin, Eleanor, find Madeline, and then his briefcase with his very important things that she was holding on to basically just explodes everywhere.
Yes.
And all they have left is one half a piece of paper. And what did his wife say to trigger that?
Okay. She says everything is in how you look at it. The perspective.
Yes, and the picture was of basically a pyramid, a triangle.
It was a graph.
Right.
It was a pyramid graph that had everything broke down, and the graph itself showed that everything or their clientele was the upper 4% of economics.
Right.
So they wanted to hit their luggage was only for the wealthy, the super wealthy.
Right, and they couldn't figure out why they weren't making enough
Yes. And when Christopher Robin picked it up, he turned it over and realized that it's how you look at it.
money. Right,
We're targeting 4% instead of the 96%. So he
right,
runs into the building.
right. And he's like, Eleanor, you're a genius. And she's like, what the fuck did I do?
Right.
So they run into the building. They go upstairs, go into the room where they're still discussing how insane he is,
Mm-hmm.
and go in there. And he says, I've got it. I know what we're going to do. And
they say, what?
they say, what? And then he says, right now, we sell luggage to this group of people. Now, if we target the rest of the people and you start giving paid vacations, that money, because this trip's like, I have paid vacations. That's stupid. That's insane. But like, he's like, that money that you're paying them for their paid vacation, you're going to get back and them buying your luggage.
Yes.
And the wheels start turning in the old man's head. And then the young one, the kid says, his son says, well, that's just stupid. He's like, and Chris Robin says, you would say that. He's like, why do you say that? Because you're a woozle.
You're a woozle.
I'll let you
I
go
don't know what a woozle or a huffalump is. Sir.
Right?
But then his father ends up calling him. I don't know what a woozle is, but I'm starting to think you're a woozle.
Right. So, he explains it, and he's like, well, Christopher Robin, I want you to get right on this. And he's like, I will, as soon as I get back from my holiday with my family.
Yes.
And all of us in the company are taking a holiday right now.
Exactly. And that's one of the first times I said exactly the show. That's kind of funny.
Right. Oh, and the most important line is he asked Christopher Robin, he's like, because Christopher Robin had said this earlier, but this key for him to remember. The guy says, well, Robin, what are we going to do? He says, nothing. And the guy's like, because sometimes nothing leads to the best something. He's like, exactly.
Something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I had another Pooh quote. I've lost it. It was right there.
But that quote again goes back to the Tao of Pooh, and I can't help but keep tying this in when I see it.
No, it's perfect.
Because that line, nothing leads to the best something, is about having a clear mind. And once you can clear your mind and your mind is full of nothing and you have that clarity, then you reach that level that you're seeking to achieve and you get those things that you didn't even know you wanted.
And that ties into two of our other episodes. It ties into the magic episode that we did, and it ties into the law of attraction episode.
Right.
And if we were to do one about attracting a member of a mate, a partner,
right,
they would say, do nothing.
Right.
Or go searching.
How am I supposed to find the woman of my dreams? Don't look.
Yeah.
She'll come up.
Exactly.
When you least expect it. And we all heard that growing up, and it wasn't until it actually happened that we believed in it.
Yeah. And the quote that I was gonna say, there's sometimes the smallest things take up the most room in your heart.
Oh yeah.
And that goes back to a line that Christopher Robin says to Pooh near the end of this movie. It's like, you may be a bear of little brain, but you're a bear of big heart.
Exactly. And then the end of the movie, so now they left the boardroom, and now Christopher Robin, Eleanor, my wife Eleanor, and Maddie are all in the 100 Acres Woods. And Pooh says, it's always a sunny day when Christopher Robin comes to visit, and the sun's shining, the wind's blowing, everybody's having fun, they're having a picnic, tea, and then Christopher Robin goes and sits with Pooh, and they just sit.
Yeah. It was a great scene. It was a perfect sunny ending to what I thought was a really feel good movie.
I was on the verge of tears at times through it. I saw a lot of my own mistakes in that movie, which is what I like about these movies, because they make you reflect on yourself. Am I doing what he's doing? If I am, how do I change it?
Yes. And I get called immature a lot, but there's one thing that I've always taken right here in my heart is keep your inner child.
Yes, yes. Because that inner child will help you connect with your children. It'll help you stay happy throughout your life.
Yes. And one of the things that I have a hard time relating to my parents at my age.
Right.
Because now, I mean, yes, my son, he's graduated high school, he's starting a career and all this other stuff. But at my age, my parents had 4 kids through high school. They have a grandchild. All right. I think they have 2 at this point. And to me, it's just like, no, they only had one grant, just the one at this time. But they had mortgage payments and they had all this other stuff. It's like, just
right.
I can't see myself in going back. It's like they had kids graduating high school when they were in their 30s. It's like, I mean, my parents had my brother and I really young, and then 6 years after me, they had my sisters.
Right.
It's like I have a hard time seeing, putting me in the shoes of my dad.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand completely because, same. My mom was 15 when she had my brother, 17 when she had me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I went through the same thing. Only my parents weren't. Well, my dad was a grandpa for my stepsister at my age.
Yeah.
But it's my mom had passed away when she was 40. So I mean, I've outlived her. But looking back and seeing this, and seeing, my mom liked to have fun. She liked to drink, and when she was drunk, her inner child would come out, and she was hilarious.
Yeah, she was.
And you could see that inner child that just longing to get out, but she always, because of the way our family was growing up, they all had to be somewhat serious. Mm-hmm. They could have fun when we're playing games and stuff like that, but you had to put on these airs.
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate because I don't put on those airs as much as my parents did.
I don't adopt those same ideals or principles that they had. I mean, I guess it's generational. Our Gen Xers, we decided that we wanted to be a little bit different than
right.
the boomers, but
right.
They started off as children. They were children through the 60s, and then after the 70s and then into the 80s, they decided, you know what, I'm just going to knuckle down and be whatever it became.
I think as an adult, one of the hardest lessons I had to learn was to let my kids make their own mistakes.
Yes.
And, they may pick paths that I don't necessarily agree with, but then again, what makes them happy isn't what makes me happy. But, what makes them happy does make me happy because them being happy makes me happy.
Yeah.
It's their life, and I have to step back and realize it's their life. They're going to live it the way they choose to. I just have to be here to be supportive.
Yeah. And I'm that way with my son and my stepchildren. It's like whatever, I go out of my way to make sure that they get everything that they need. But at the same time, it's like, it's not my life. Like my son, he doesn't live with me anymore. My stepson doesn't live here anymore either.
Right.
We have my stepdaughter, but it's, you step back and, I look at I remember when I was my son's age and the stupid shit that I was doing. It's like, I hope to God he doesn't do the stupid shit that I did.
Right. Like our oldest daughter, she's graduating this year. And I had sat down and had a talk with her because she's basically seen, she's an adult. She's seen things now for what they are instead of what she saw them as when she was younger. And it's kind of disheartening to her. And she sees these people trying to make choices for her, what to do with her life. And I sat down with her and I said, here's the deal. You graduate high school, you're an adult, you're 18. Nobody can control what you do. It is your choice.
Mm-hmm.
You do what's going to make you happy. You follow your dreams. Anybody has a problem with it, send them to me.
It was really hard for me because like my son didn't want to drive. He didn't want to get his driver's license. So he didn't do it until after he was 18.
Right.
Now, when he got his driver's license, I walked up to the counter with him because I'm dad. And the lady looked at it and said, oh, we don't need you. Oh, yeah, he's 18. Okay. So I went and sat down and went, oh, I got told. And then he did his thing. He got his picture taken, got his driver's license and all that shit. It's like, all right.
Oh, we didn't say the most important thing about the movie. When he caught up to his daughter,
mm-hmm.
and she's like, Dad, I'm sorry, I lost your most important things. And he's like, honey, you're the most important thing to me. Your safety is the most important thing to me. Your happiness is the most important thing. Because Pooh had told her earlier that her happiness was the most important thing for Christopher Robin. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, I just thought if I could get this stuff to you, you wouldn't send me away. And that broke my fucking heart. And the floodgates almost went open at that point. Yeah. And I was like, and she's like, he says, oh, honey, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. We will all stay here together, and I will be here with you. And it's at that point he decided, I'm not going to be that person anymore. I'm going to let that inner child out and be with my family.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said for being responsible, but there's also, if that responsibility means you're working 90 hours a week and never seeing your wife or your children or anything else, is it fucking worth it?
Exactly. You have to find a medium there. Now, I know I understand and I appreciate the people that can throw themselves into their work. I mean, because when I'm doing the things that I like to do, I can lose time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I know a lot of people that could do that they love their job and they just lose time when they're doing it. And the next thing you know, it's like they're not going home until, they start their day at 6 and they don't go home until like 8 o'clock at night, and they do that again the next day and keep going. And they still work when they get home. It's cool for you. But even when you have hobbies, like you're an artist and it's not a hobby, it's your job. But you find a happy medium between working all the time and spending quality time with your family.
Right. Yeah. I take one day a week and go and play Dungeons and Dragons with my son and my brother and some of our friends. And I try, and every night my wife and I spend time together before bed. I try to make sure I always have that. There's sometimes when I have a project that I'm so focused on, but I have a very understanding wife who supports that, and she knows that just because I'm focused on this and I'm not spending time with her or paying attention to her doesn't mean I don't love her.
Yeah. And my wife and I
always try to make up for it.
We'll spend time just sitting on the couch. We maybe watch a TV show together, or watch some live PD and laugh at people getting arrested. We may not even talk, but we try to spend at least a little time together.
Right. And I mean, my wife and I are that type that's happy if we're just both laying together in bed, each of us reading our own book, or her reading a book and me watching like YouTube videos or something, or playing. I got her hooked on playing this game on her phone, and we'll sit there and play our games on our phones. But we're still spending time together, even if we're not necessarily interacting with each other. It's that presence, nearness that we crave.
Yes. So, keep your inner child.
Yes.
Balance with your family.
Yes.
Be responsible.
Yes.
Be accountable, and be a better person.
Right. And be self-reflective. And if you still haven't gone out and watched Christopher Robin yet, you dumbasses, get out there and watch that goddamn movie. It's good. It's worth it. And
if you watch this whole thing and you're like, well, I guess I don't need to watch it now. Thank you, Eeyore. But you'll still, we skipped over so many lines that
Right.
just Pooh being in the train station with Christopher Robin, it's line after line after line after line after line of just cute. Is
Yeah.
the best way I could say it.
And Jason, can you put underneath us here, right down below, a link to the audiobook of The Tao of Pooh?
Yes.
I highly recommend you go and listen to that because a lot of it is told through Pooh, Tigger, and Christopher Robin.
Nice.
And they got the voices and everything. So it's definitely worth listening to. If nothing else, you're hearing stories about Pooh.
Right. And once again, we're not talking like copophagia, we're not talking any kind of sick, twisted fetish. We're talking about Winnie the Pooh.
Right. Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh. Dun, 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 dun. I don't remember all the words.
And it was great because that was the music in the background, and it was just faint enough to like, oh, that's the song. That's what they're doing all the way through it.
Yep. And one thing I like, especially when you watch movies multiple times, is finding nuances that you missed the first time watching. That to me, I mean, unfortunately, like today while I was watching it, I was also finishing up that piece of artwork I shared with you earlier. So I was more listening to it than watching it, but I still caught stuff just by listening to it. So, when you find movies like this that, are self-reflective, that, are feel-good movies, watch them. If you watch a movie that makes you feel good, watch it a couple more times.
There's nothing wrong with watching a movie more than once.
Right. It's, it's a legal drug.
Yeah.
You're releasing dopamine and endorphins into your body by being happy, by having feelings, by being a real fucking person, not a fake boy.
Don't be one of those dipshits that go, I don't watch movies. I already seen it once. Why do I already know the ending?
Right.
It's about being entertained. It's about the story. It's about, just enjoy it as an art piece. Enjoy it as a life lesson. It's Pooh, man. You can't go wrong.
Yep. So anyway, sum it up. We watched Christopher Robin. We both loved it. Go watch it.
Exactly. So this was the Bunny Rabbit's Hole for this week. We talked about Pooh. So
all right.
Insert your Pooh tagline here.
Love you guys. Peace out.